Hey, everybody, Neal Schön from Journey. You're listening to Mitch, Lafon, and Jeremy White Show. Check it out.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now.
Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.
Hey.
Yo, what's going on? How you doing?
Look at that.
How you doing, man?
Jeez, all good. Wow, it's so great to finally meet you face to face instead of just being on Twitter.
How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Mitch is there too?
Yeah, good day.
Hey, Mitch.
Always a pleasure. I had a chance to listen to the album, of course, and it is smoking. What a album of the year. I mean, you listen to the guitar work on a song like "Holding On." Wow, that is smoking.
Yeah, it's funny. That song almost didn't make the album, and it was one of the first ones that I wrote with Narda. And I knew it was a little bit more on the progressive side, and so I held off on finishing the thing, to the very end, and I kept messing around with the vocal ideas like I did on most of the tracks that I wrote on this record, and scatting vocals, trying to find the right pocket for the vocal for the track that made it sound right. And I tried, on and off for, I don't know, about 6-7 months. Wow. I'd go in and try one idea and I'd come back and go, no, that's not it. And, finally I tapped in, I go, what would Aretha do on this? Because I love Aretha Franklin. And I kind of scatted some Aretha scats, like, R&B, just soul blues. And it kind of came out and I went, that sounds pretty good. And so Randy Jackson, he wrote the chorus on that song when I sent it to him to replace my bass. And he sent it back with Holding On, and he had stacked his vocals. And, it just kind of came together like that. It wasn't something that we worked on at one specific time. It was kind of spread out, and then it came time for me to play a solo, and I just kind of, I don't know, I just thought I'm going to just rip through this thing. Not like a lot of holes, just rip through it,
Yeah, as you should, really, right? You know what?
I just like that kind of song, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I realized we didn't even do like a proper intro. So look, let's get right into this. We hit the ground running. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, sold 1 billion records at this point. Going to be performing at the Resort World Theater alongside the Symphony later in July. Catch them on the road as well. Brand new record called Freedom coming out on July 8th. You can pre-order it now wherever you get your music. His group is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and literally one of the greatest and biggest rock and roll bands and music groups, I mean, just in general, of all time. Welcome back to the show, the one, the only, from Journey, Neal Schön.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
it's great to see you.
Yeah, we love to have you, and we love actually going out to your shows. I mean, just quickly talk to me about that. The Journey show, 50 years in, you haven't slowed down. Arnel is kicking ass. Dean is kicking ass. You're kicking ass. Jonathan's kick. I mean, do you guys ever slow down? I mean, how come you didn't do like a club tour? Like you've been a stadium act for 50 years, for crying out loud.
It took a while, I think, for myself to wake up and realize that I was in the wrong company, with management. And, I'm loving working with A&G right now, AEG. Mm-hmm. And, they didn't know, since they had never worked with us, what it was going to be like. But I made very good friends with one of the main people there. And, we're like, if I call him up, he answers the phone. It's really kind of cool. And, just kind of taking the bull by the horns and leading it now. And we're finding out that we're, actually much bigger than it appeared to be before. And selling out all these places that, we've not been into an arena since the 80s. And we're heading back in stadiums. I mean, next year, we're planning on doing arenas again for the first 40 shows with Toto again. It was my idea to bring on Lukather and the guys, and musically that just worked so well. And a lot of people were kind of like, I don't know about that. And I go, you believe me, that our audience will love it.
Yeah.
And so, that worked really so well. I've never seen better reviews from our audience themselves, our fans, just saying they love the overall show. And it just snowballed, And so now many more fans want to see it that didn't see it. So we're going to go play the secondary markets, hit the main markets that we did miss, come make up the Canadian dates, that we had to push off, and all that. And then probably make it overseas. We're talking about going overseas with Toto as well. And Luke is calling me. He's saying, hey, some of my promoters are telling me that we can go into stadiums in some of the cities. And I'm like, doesn't surprise me,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, it's a quality show. All right, so let's get back into Freedom. Talk to me just real quick about the importance of making new music, because I, as a fan, get exceptionally bored with bands that come around and do the greatest hits set for 20 years in a row, and you just it's like, oh, okay, look, it's the same 15s, but you and Def Leppard and Bryan Adams and Bon Jovi, you keep it fresh, and I love that. Talk to me about that for you and keeping it fresh for yourself.
Well, you think you get bored. It's something that I need to do, as a guitarist and as a musician, and just somebody that I need to feel like I'm moving forward, Yep. I don't like to sit in the same place. I don't like to rest on the laurels, which where there are many, we have many hits. And could just very well go out there and do that year after year.
Well, look, let me just throw in there. I mean, Journey's Greatest Hits is number 97 on the iTunes Top 100 album chart in Canada right now. I mean, it's in the, come on.
It does not go away.
Yeah.
And so there's no way around it. You have to play the hits. What I'm really looking forward to doing now, that I've been fortunate to do by myself in different instances, is playing, an evening with. And so now that we've proved ourselves to AEG, I think, our 2023 is pretty mapped out, not completely. Some of this, what I'm going to talk about, could happen in the latter side of it, of 23, or in 24, but we're already talking about 24 and going back in stadiums as well. But definitely 25, I see us going into arenas, but doing evenings with, much like Rush used to. And I think we're definitely there now. And I'm definitely ready for it, to construct just a mind-effing set that encompasses everything that I've ever been involved with, the band since early, 72, or rather 73, but I did start the band in 72.
Yeah. Freedom coming out on July 6th. You pre-order it now wherever you get your music. July 8th, actually. Pre-order now wherever you get your music. Talking about the recording process a little bit, I was just reading where some of the places you guys recorded this record. I mean, you're all over the place and stuff. Was this really like a pandemic record in a way where you had to do it all remotely, or did you guys get into the room together and do it at all?
The only people that got into the room together and where it all started and all the songs started from were Narda and myself. So Narda Michael Walden and myself, since we lived, very close, and we worked out of his studio. We worked out of Tarpan in San Rafael. And I think it's really what saved the record in a lot of respects of having a live feel. You cut guitar, Jeremy, you're a guitar player.
Yeah.
You cut guitar without drums, and it's going to sound like that. And like, it's very difficult to go into a studio, even, and from my experience. And if you go in and you cut live with a band, and then you go back and you go, I don't really like my guitar playing the live track that I did. And you try to replace that original guitar that you played with drums.
Oh no, he's frozen.
Uh-oh. Totally frozen.
Oh,
there we go. Now he's back.
Yeah, everything kind of falls apart, and the glue,
Yeah.
That we set is now unglued.
Yeah.
And you're almost better off just recutting it with drums, guitar and drums. I think it's just vital. to have that feel and that, cohesiveness and where you're gelling with whom you're playing with. And so, I've made many records like this, going back to the first co-solo records I did with Jan Hammer. And, at the time, I didn't know that Jan played drums. I went up, upstate New York and met with him, and he is like, well, let's just lay it down. And I go, well, who's going to play? And he goes, I'm going to play. Okay.
Right.
And he just whipped it. He can play great drums, man. I was so impressed. And so that was like the first record I did like that. And then I did many records, other solo records after that, where it was just guitar and drums, and some I just played bass on, and overdub some keys too.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, like, talk about the recording process, though. I mean, like, back in the day, you had to set up all these amps and different things. Try this guitar, try that guitar, try this cabinet. Did you go totally digital this time around? Did you experiments with some old school gear?
Had we done it all at one time, I would have set up at least one mono cabinet with one ass-kicking head.
Yeah.
Whether it was a Marshall or EVH. I love the EVH EL34 heads.
Yeah.
I've been using those live. And I would have had one, but we were in and out of the studio, and it was on and off throughout about a year and a half. There was different projects that Narda was doing. He couldn't work all the time. I had, different things going on. And so I chose just to use a Kemper,
Wow.
Because, I had gone in the studio and I had sampled my own amps into the Kemper, and spent a day, at Fantasy Studios in Berkeley when it was still open before they wiped it out. And, I took my Hi-Watts, took my Marshalls, took my Fenders, took my Wagners, I kind of, sampled everything that I had. So they were real amps. And I just thought it was an easy way around the solution without having to worry about where was the mic and where exactly in the room was everything placed. If I wanted to punch in on something that I had done that I didn't
You don't have to worry about the cleaning lady coming in and moving a mic or...
Yeah, no, it's like, and so for this project, and, I think it sounds great. I think we're in a digital world,
Yeah.
Honestly.
Totally.
HD Pro Tools is very, very good. If your engineer is very good and doesn't oversaturate it and hit it too hard. And I find that it can sound as good as 2-inch tape. There's nothing like 2-inch tape. If you have, a great engineer, that knows how to slam the tape, like all the earlier recordings, and saturate the tape. There's not quite anything like that, but really you can't even buy tape anymore. So it's nuts.
Yeah. And it's super expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, insane. It's insanely expensive if you can find it, So I just chose to do it all digital.
Yeah. Talk about, I was just going to say, talking about the guitar tones and stuff in this record, it's a really guitar heavy record, which I wasn't really expecting. I was expecting maybe some more ballady kind of tones or different, but it's a really slam and rock record in a way. Was it fun to go back to that?
Yeah, what it basically was, I produced the record with Narda, and I wanted to go for a live feel. I wanted a live sound. I wanted to capture more what the band sounds like in a stadium or in an arena.
Yeah.
So, there's a few tracks where I have just dead dry guitar going for that old school thing, whether it's AC/DC or Free or, Paul Kossoff in early days,
Nice.
like All Day and All Night. That's just flat,
Yeah.
and it sounds great, but for the most of the part, I like that long chamber echo. I like the long pre-delayed, chamber, even that Ted Templeman used on, early Halen records.
Yeah. Which Ed hated, by the way, apparently. He hated that chamber sound.
I
It's great, though.
if poor Ed. If he was still here, I'd argue with him. But we were good friends.
We'll keep the arguing for you and Brad Gillis.
What's that?
We'll keep the arguing for you and Brad Gillis.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I love the Giant. I think I like hearing the echo because I play differently.
Yeah.
Well,
even your Instagram videos, I mean, like you got like your tone is so saturated with the delay and the reverb. Like that's the tone that I love to hear. So to hear it on a rock record, and I'm like, fuck yeah, like this is coming back.
And I get the guys that go on there that are like, dude, take all that shit off, because I can't hear the wood. And I'm like, no, you know what? This is my site. I'm going to do what you want. You don't want to listen? Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly. Yeah. Same thing with me. I love the Cannonball snare drum. I need the super processed, H3000 micro pitch on the guitar. I need all of it.
Also, when you're in a little room and you're listening back to, I don't have a full-fledged studio in my house, and I have medium-sized KRK mixing speakers in there.
Yeah.
I'm just recording onto a little iPhone. I don't even have it hooked up direct.
Yeah.
And so, it's just for practice purposes. And it's a little more inspiring to me for me to hear myself like I'm playing in a bigger place, because that's where I usually play.
Yeah.
So I'm used to listening to the PA pumping in the place. I don't have my in-ears up loud.
Mm-hmm.
I have, I want to hear the PA.
And you still have cabinets on the stage too.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, I've got them really low. I'm using really killer Myers cabinets that are very, they're not tall. And they're blowing by, my ankles, but they are pumping some air down there.
Yeah.
And we got a little EVH 212 cab right now, with, a head as well.
Yeah. Talking about EVH, and just guitar tones in general, you're using the EVH amps now, but back in the day, your guitar tone was sort of fresh in a way because nobody sounded like your tone. You listen to like the volume swells on Faithfully in that little intro, or you listen to the solo on Don't Stop Believing. Nobody had that guitar tone that you had. Was it hard to conceive that tone at the time? And did you have it in your head? And like how did you come up with that sound?
Well, to be honest, it was a jumped up high watt head that some guys had made for me. And I used to like use the A channel, B channel, Y chord thing, just like you do with old Plexis.
Yeah.
And the head really had some oomph to it, with the high watt thing instead of the Marshall thing. It's like really kind of in your face, a lot of mids, high mids, mids, and not quite as brutal as, a Plexi for Journey. It just had a different slot that seemed to fit with us better. But really, the sounds you're talking about, the swells and all that, I loved the Lexicon 224s, the studio giant Lexicons they used to mix. And at the time, I had met some guys at the company, and I had them build me a pedal board that would control, the 224.
Oh, wow.
And, so everything you're hearing on there, I recorded like that. It wasn't mixed like that. And I kind of set it myself and did the swells myself with, pretty much like a volume pedal. And that's what I use live, and so it's just a long, pre-delayed, endless echo and, a little bit of slap, but kind of what I'm doing in a Kemper right now too. Maybe, it doesn't have the complete, fidelity of a 224, but those units are so big and hard to take on tour. Got bounced around a lot. It would work. It didn't work,
Jeez.
I ended up selling it after a while.
Well, that's why they're designed for the studio, right? But it's like, a lot of people talk about the guitar tones of the 80s. They talk about Eddie. They talk about, Def Leppard or Bon Jovi, but nobody ever really mentions your guitar tone. I just wanted to throw that out there and just, mention it because it's such an instantly recognizable thing. And I feel like a lot of people copied you once you did it.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And, I think the only guys that really have talked about my playing in general are like, Steve Vai, Satriani, friends of mine.
Yeah. Well, we just had Keith Scott from Bryan Adams' band on the show last week, and he mentioned you.
I saw that, man. Keith I don't know if you've ever heard him play by himself. Have you heard him?
Yeah.
Well,
he's
out of the realm, out of the Bryan Adams realm.
No, well, I mean,
well, I have, because he has guested on a whole bunch of other albums, but I mean his tone and his playing. I mean, look at the riffs he's done. He's on Summer of '69, Cuss Like. I mean, those are classic songs.
And you know what? I know this just from touring with those guys. When Brian's album first came out, he was touring with Journey. And I loved the tour. And, I thought he was just such a solid, amazing guitar player for what he was doing with Brian, just playing what the song needed, tastefully and with great tone and with command. But when I was walking backstage and I walked by the room, I heard some guy in there freaking wailing, man. And it sounded like Alan Holdsworth, right?
Wow.
It's like, who the fuck is that? And I open up the door and it's him, man. And I'm going, I didn't know you played like that. And he goes, oh yeah, that, I was like, you never know it.
So Keith Scott's like a closet shredder then.
Keith is amazing.
He can definitely dig in and play as progressive as you want him to and as outside as you want him to. Yeah.
Just real quick, I love Arnel. I love Steve Perry. I love all the singers you've had. But ultimately, it comes down to having great songs. And when you listen to this album and you hear You Got the Best of Me, Come Away With Me, Holding On Like I Mentioned, right away, they're instantly recognizable as being Journey songs. Instantly, you're singing along to the chorus. I mean, you just connect. It's not one of these albums where you have to sit and go, oh, it'll grow on me. Give me a month. Like, you hear You Got the Best of Me, and to me, it sounds like a Journey song of the last 40 years. It's instantly like, I'm singing it. Yeah. Just talk to me about the songwriting process, because I think regardless of who the singer is, if your songs suck, it won't matter. But if your songs are great.
It is about the songs. I mean, when you're in a band, it is all about the songs, always, more so than the players. It's great to have great players.
Yep.
But, without the songs, you really don't have a band or anything that sounds like the band. So, like You Got the Best of Me, for instance, I'll just take you through how that song came down. Me feeling like we needed more up-tempo songs in our set because we don't have a lot of fast songs. We have like Dead or Alive, and we got, Any Way You Want It. And there's just a few that are like really raised tempos. And a lot of them are median tempo rockers that are meant to sound really big in a coliseum, in a big place, in a stadium. Because if you play super fast stuff in a stadium, it gets lost. So you go for that big mid-tempo like AC/DC has done for years and other bands like that. And so I had Any Way You Want It on my mind because that's our second biggest downloaded song next to Don't Stop Believing to this day. And there's really not much to it. It's a tempo, it's some attitude, 3 chords, and, a verse and a chorus, a different chorus, and a couple guitar solos. And so, I was messing around with the Korg downstairs, and I just, put in a drum loop that I felt was, the right tempo. And I started playing over the top of it, and it came out like in a couple seconds. And then I laid it down with Narda, went in the studio, and I had it all arranged. And we laid it down, played live solos, then went back and replaced the rhythm in some areas. And then I went out to sing on it because that's what I did on a lot of this record, except for the track like that Jonathan brought in or the one that Arnel co-wrote, and I went and scat the vocal, and that is my scat, what he's singing, he's singing my melodies, and I came up with the chorus hook lyrically, then I stacked those. And it's really weird. When I did it, I stacked like 4 of each harmony that I did. So it sounded like a big, giant stacked chorus a la Roy Thomas Baker.
Yeah, nice. You were like 10% there for a Mutt Lange chorus.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounded really great. When Bob Clearmountain mixed it, he kind of pulled things back and he featured more Arnel. And I'm not going to tell Clearmountain what to do. Yeah. He's so awesome. And
He's the man.
yeah, him and Mike Frazier. I love both those guys.
Yeah. Talking about Mutt Lange, how come through the 80s like Journey never worked with Mutt Lange? Because I feel like that marriage would have just been perfect.
Oh, it would have been beautiful.
I think it still would be. I love Mutt's work. I think that we didn't have that type of time to set aside because our manager at the time had us working constantly.
Right.
We'd work, for 2 years straight, and then we'd have like a couple months to make a new record. Then you're back out on tour. And so, as you know, Mutt likes to take his time. He likes to try everything under the sun.
Yeah.
As I've been told by many artists that have worked with him, he will leave no rock unturned, and he'll try everything in his head until he, finds what he's looking for.
Yeah.
I admire him though. He is amazing. He leaves definitely, if you do an album with Mutt, he's going to leave his stamp on it, regardless if it's Shania Twain or it's Def Leppard or it's Bryan Adams, whoever he works with, you're going to hear Mutt in it. And I hear he sings a lot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the marriage would have been I mean, just imagine Neal's guitar, Journey's songwriting, and then Mutt's brain putting it all.
We could always try to do a single.
Yeah.
And not a whole record. We might be able to get through it in a couple months.
Hey, we got 3 months. You want to do a single, Mutt?
I got a couple months. Yeah.
That's great. Look, Freedom is coming out on July 8th. You can pre-order it now wherever you get your music. They're also going to be doing a couple of dates. And, geez, so much stuff happening in the Journey world. Neal, you just seem like you're still having a blast doing all of this. And it's just so awesome to see.
Music is my life. The band has been my life. I'm the only one that's been there since the very beginning of it. And, I feel like I have.
Oh, no.
Where'd he go?
Oh,
where'd he go? There he is.
Oh, there he is. He's back.
I just feel like there's a lot left to do, guitar playing wise, you never learn everything about the guitar. Such a great instrument, and you can always aspire to get better and learn more, like I've been
Is that why you have to buy 150 or?
Is that why?
Is that why you have to buy 150 of them to try and learn as much as you can? Or?
I just decided to invest, which I had never done before. And I ended up selling most of them. So it's like, my go-to guitars are pretty much I have a few vintage Strats like 61, 62, 63s. Those are my favorite years for Strats. And I have great 61, 2 and 3s. But the 59 Pauls that I have Michael Bloomfield 59 relics that Gibson made with the first run. And I bought 9 of them because they were so good. And 9. They kind of eat up every other 59 I've played.
Really?
Vintage, yes.
Wow.
Huh.
There's different electronics in it. We have Bumblebee electronics in it, and there's just something to do with the bigger tone knob in the back that things get really thick and full or brighter. An excellent instrument and a huge neck.
Are you still bypassing the second tone pot and just using one in your guitars?
No, I left those guitars, whatever sounds good, I don't bypass. If sometimes it works to your advantage to have 2-tone pots, and especially if you use like a fuzz bass, which I like using. They don't really use it so much like a fuzz, but I turn the volume all the way, almost all the way up, and turn the fuzz way, way back. And so it kind of hits the front of the amp. But you'll find that the tone knob, like on a Tele or on a lot of different guitars, really reacts so differently when you're using a pedal like that in front. And so if you want to get a lot of treble out of the guitar, like You Got the Best of Me, I used a Tele on that track. And I went through a fuzz phase, And some of the lead gets nice and fat and full. When you crank it up, it's kind of like the old Jimmy Page thing
Right.
that he did on the first Zeppelin album. You pull the volume back and it gets very in your face, a lot more treble. And then you have to roll off a bit of the tone so it doesn't rip your head off. But
Yeah.
I really like what that pedal does. It's wild. I really never messed around with a fuzz face that much until, I don't know, about 3 years ago.
I love the fact that you're still tone chasing after all these years, still finding something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely a tone freak. I'm going for that. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's your voice.
Yeah.
I'm not a lead singer, so I mean, the guitar is my voice.
Well, if you ever get tired of your Stealth Wolfgang, I'll send you my address.
And a few $1,000s. Just real quick before we leave, of course, you had Narda and Randy on the album, and you've got Dean and stuff back on tour. Just talk to me about that switch. Was it always meant just to be a studio album with those guys, or could they just not commit to a tour? What happened?
Well, a lot of stuff happened that was not planned to happen. It was planned that they were going to go on tour. Narda started out with us on tour, and he had some physical complications. Okay. And one of the first of the East Coast run that we did after Lollapalooza, we ended up in Pennsylvania, and he had to, we had to take him to the hospital afterwards. And, he doesn't really want it out there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But, after he had a scare like that, I just thought, I don't want to be the person that would possibly be the one that could take him down.
Yeah, you don't want to risk it. Come on.
And Dean was there backing us up and helping us because we had to play the 3.5 show in Chicago before we played Lollapalooza, and Dean was the only one that could remember all that stuff. And so, I talked to John and I said, look, Narda needs some help here. We've been in here, about 5 days now rehearsing. A lot of it's just not sticking. It's too much to remember. And so agreed to bring Dean out, and I'm glad we did. Dean has been so, Dean has been like he's tall, but he's my little brother. I've been with him forever, and he's such an amazing guy, but musician and singer. Talk about a singing drummer. There's no one like Dean. And I've seen the best of them, whether it's Phil Collins or Don Henley or whomever. Nobody can sing and play like Dean Castronova.
Yeah.
And so Randy, at the same token, he had a back operation, and I wasn't even aware of that. He was working in the studio, but wasn't aware that he was healing. And so he wasn't able to come out physically either. So we started with Marco Mendoza. And after Narda had left and we went to play the iHeart radio show in Vegas, that we kind of headlined and kicked everybody's ass. It was, I was mixing our performance with a good friend in Nashville, and I'm listening to where everything's sitting. I'm listening to the bass and drums and guitar. And I noticed that Marco he sounded so different. He was not playing the required parts in the songs, that made the songs sound like the songs. And he was kind of overplaying and playing in front of the drums, which doesn't leave a big pocket for me to sit in.
Yeah.
And, so I talked to him about it, and he was kind of nonchalant about it. He goes, okay, I'll keep that in mind. And I go, well, I'd like you to more than keep it in mind. I'd like you to, check it out a little deeper.
I'd like you to do your job, really.
At that point, when everybody heard the recording, actually heard it not in an echoey, arena, but heard it, on with the mix that we had done. Everybody agreed that they just thought that, Marco wasn't the right guy for the right chemistry to fit with Dean altogether. So I immediately thought of Todd Jensen because, I had a great time with Todd on stage before, like starting out with the Hardline band. that goes way back. But then after we left that band, Paul Rogers hired me to go out and do the Muddy Waters tour. And he had a band in place at the time. And Paul was getting very frustrated because nobody could remember the songs. And I said, Paul, if you allow me, I said, I know 2 guys I can bring in here, and they'll learn every single one of these songs. We won't even have to rehearse. We just walk on stage. They'll do their homework. And so he agreed to do it. And I brought Dean and Todd, and we had an ass kicking trio. We played everything from Free to Bad Company to The Firm to Muddy Waters Blues album and then I started adding Hendrix tunes. We did like 5 or 6 Hendrix tunes, and that was our set. It was bionic. It was a 2-hour set, and man, we all had a blast doing that. And I would do it again with him.
Yeah.
He was so good, just freaking amazing.
It must be nice to just play with really good musicians.
It's great to play with guys that are really consistent,
Yeah.
There's a lot of really great musicians out there, and most have their own little forte. There's not a lot of them that do, a lot of different things really great, which Journey kind of requires, because, this new Freedom album, it's got a lot of, there's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of different types of songwriting on this album, much like an Escape. You have a song like Dead or Alive, and then you have an Open Arms. I mean, it couldn't be further apart, And so, we have to have musicians that are capable of playing a lot of different styles. And on this album, we tap into some new areas like Holding On, or All Day and All Night was a completely different thing to me. When I wrote that song, the holes I left in it and the dry guitar, the big punchy, I go, oh, Paul Rogers eat this up, in a second. And so when I went out to lay the vocal on it, Narda helped me with that one as well. We kind of went in that blues rock vein, which is something new for Arnel, and he absolutely loves the new plays. Come Away With Me, and all those funky, hard rocking tunes that we have in this album. There's like 4 of them that are in a different chapter for Journey, which I'm really happy that once we did, Holding On, I said, wow, this is going to stick out like a sore thumb on this album if I don't write like 3 more that kind of coincide and come from the same area. And it shows people that we can actually go into a new chapter and do some things we've never done before.
Yeah.
Not only vocally, but just with the type of grooves, these grooves we can really use in our show. I mean, you can make albums all day long, like Mitch was talking about, and a lot of bands stay to their format, Sure, some of it has to sound immediately like Journey. Otherwise, people are going to scratch their head and go, why'd they do that?
Yeah.
But, you also, I think if you want to move forward, you have to, tap onto some new grounds and cover some new grounds and show that there's still new life in the band. And, I think this gives Arnel a tremendous opportunity to, become himself and not plagiarizing anybody, not having to sound like this, having to sound like that. When I found Arnel 15 years ago on YouTube, the reason I was so moved by the guy, I didn't even listen to the Journey stuff that he had covered like Faithfully until the very end of all the 40 clips. I listened to all the Zeppelin stuff he was doing. I listened to Sting. I listened to
the Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi. I mean, it was like everybody. I go, this guy he's a chameleon.
Yeah.
A chameleon singer like I've never heard before. And then if you're standing right next to him and you ask him to do, somebody else like, Jesus, I could pick any jazz singer, and he's able to morph himself into that and sound just like it, like Nat King Cole. He does Nat King Cole like to a T,
Wow.
And you're just going, what? That's insane. And it's all him, really, It's just him. He's got many different voices, but Arnel can croon with the best of them. And since we've got this new mixer out in front, we've got a very great young mixer with fresh ears right now, 29 years old from England. And we're stealing him away from somebody else for next year.
Nice.
But he did come in and he really straightened our stuff out and managed to straighten, we brought in an outside help also, a vocal guy that was helped Arnel dial in his in-ears. Because I don't know what he was listening to up there, but he couldn't hear himself and he couldn't explain why he couldn't hear himself.
Right.
And so there was pitch problems. Now it sounds like a record every freaking night. And so now I'm going, wow, you spent 13 years not being able to hear yourself and couldn't explain it. I was like, that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, of course.
Because he sounds as good or better right now than he sounded when I first found him.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's bionic.
It's amazing how like a mix could just, completely throw you off.
And it was the in-house mix too, in front, these halls we're playing are hockey halls, basketball halls. And so they're not built really for music. And if you tend to put too many subs in there on the floor, and use too much on the floor, all it does is bounce around the building. It couples and it comes back on stage, and I can't tell what key I'm in. Let alone Arnel.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's interesting. Now I'm gonna make sure to pay attention to the sound at the next Journey show because it sounds like you got it all dialed in. I love a good sounding show, so it's nice to know that you put that much effort into it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it sounds like an album out there now every night. He's not one of these guys. The problem with a lot of guys we had in the past is they couldn't keep their hands off the motherfucking faders.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like when you get the band sounding right, we are musical. We do our own dynamics.
Yeah.
When the guitar comes down, I want it to come down. When I turn the guitar down, I don't want you grabbing the fader and shoving it up the top of the console.
Totally.
And so constantly had that problem where the guitar, and I could tell what was going on many, many times just from an iPhone. Somebody's in the back of the hall, even if they were up in the nosebleed, they're holding it up. And I could tell if there wasn't enough drums, bass, there was too much guitar. It was always too much vocals out in front, too many background vocals, too much lead guitar, no band to back it up, no bass, no drums.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on, man?
Right.
I like having a big band wrapped around me, so I'm like kind of fighting to get out. You need that power wrapped around you to sound like anything. It doesn't matter how good you are unless you're Eddie Van Halen. You're trying to figure out how he's doing this tapping stuff where they do an isolated track,
Right.
But I mean, just guitar by itself gets really annoying. I got so tired of looking in the front row at people looking like they were getting mauled over by sound. By the second song, if I want to play another guitar solo, they're going, "Oh, please don't."
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Razor blades in the ears and all that, like low mid.
It's not pleasant, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it must help when you have a front of house guy that knows the music. I mean, I interviewed one of the guitar players for Shania Twain's old band, and they were talking about how Mutt Lange came in and they hired this guy that did like sound for like Bruce Springsteen or something. And he just threw the faders up, and Mutt was like, no, stop. And then they spent a whole day just dialing in the bass tone and the drums in the arena. And then they had to fire the guy because he didn't know the records. He brought his guy Nigel Green in, studied the album, knew which fiddle parts to ride the faders on. And like, you need somebody that knows the music and is a fan to mix the band, I think.
Yep.
Absolutely. They need to know the songs. They need to be familiar with the songs. But they also, it helps. Honest to God, they have a tough job, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I don't know that many guys that have been doing it for over 2 decades, where they still have all their hearing. Yeah. They can't wear headphones out there. They can put a headset on for a second after they get things dialed to kind of save their ears, but they usually hate doing that.
Right.
And so, if you're mixing loud out there, it's only a matter of time before that high end goes in your ears. Then you're going to overcompensate for that high end, that 10K, all that ugly stuff that's on top that's just like razor blades. And they reach for that. And then they cram the instruments up that are in that realm, you know, it's like,
and then it's just like broken glass mud in your ears.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like hearing really like nice full. I want to hear like a jukebox, an old jukebox mix.
Yeah.
That's what Journey needs. And the subs are really, you know, they can be used with us, but not a whole lot because they're not that musical.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a huge fan of the system that came from Canada, you know, the S4s and, you know, all that old audio analyst, all that stuff that we used for years. I mean, it's hard to find anything that sounds that good.
Yeah, even with technology. I mean, jeez.
I agree.
Well, look, geez, Neal, you've said it all. Freedom. July 8th. You can pick up, pre-order it now wherever you get your music. Of course, catch them on the road. This sounds like it's going to be an audible experience. It's just going to assault your ears.
It always is. And I'll say this last thing. I saw them on the Def Leppard tour it was Cheap Trick at the Fenway Park. And stadium shows usually sound like shit. But all three bands sounded amazing. And when you know what you're doing, it just shows. And it was spectacular.
Well, thank you guys. And you know, one thing I can add is that when you're playing outside, it's way easier to get a better sound. You know, outside the sound goes out and you still get some of the slap back, you know, from the stadium, from the seats, because they go up high and it comes back at you. So you feel that like you're inside, but you don't have all the issues. Like if it's too loud, you know, it can stand to be loud outside because the sound just goes out and goes up, you know. Inside, you know, the arenas, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you, you got the best of me. Come away with me, holding on. Just instantly classic songs. Fans are gonna love it.
We have a new single too coming out. I want to let you guys know United We Stand is coming out on the 4th of July. So this coming up Monday. And we'll also, they came and they pre-taped us for the 4th of July in Nashville. So we're going to be on CNN for the 4th as well.
Perfect.
Hopefully they put your performance online this time.
Yeah, I know. Wasn't that the shits?
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of politics that was, but, you know, I have a feeling it was politics.
Well, probably. It's CNN, right? Well, look, go pre-order Freedom now. You guys are doing the CD, the vinyl, the whole 9 yards. It's not just a digital thing. I can get the double LP gatefold thing, the full packaging.
Yes, you can.
Neal? Yeah, there we go. We got the nod. Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be, it's a double CD, double, you know, album. And so it's packed, 15 tracks. And you know what's funny? The one last thing, the song that closes the album, "Beautiful as You Are," is the first time, you know, that I've written a long, like a suite in for one of our albums. And it goes back in this song to me kind of takes you back to Infinity era when Perry first came in, where it was very musical before it went kind of more in a pop area, you know, with John and him. But it's that from that era, but it's a suite. And in order for it to stick, you know, be able to be put on 2 vinyl albums for the vinyl, I had to chop another 5 minutes out of it. There was a whole nother section.
Oh, man.
In that song. And so, you know, who knows, maybe after the album comes out for a while, I can put the section back in and we'll just put it out as a single song.
Yeah, make it like a record store day exclusive or something.
Yeah, I'd love
to. Yeah, I
hear
mean, it's long enough to be almost the side of an album.
It'd be like a Genesis track or something. It'd be like Supper's Ready. But
yeah,
I've got mine pre-ordered from Japan. Apparently there's a bonus track, so I'm all in. It's paid for.
Yeah, the bonus track is beautiful too. It's a ballad. It's one of John's ballads.
Perfect. Can't wait to get it. I'm waiting for my CD from Japan to show up.
Yep.
It was great to hang with you guys.
You too.
Yeah, you too.
Hopefully we'll see you when we get up in your neck of the woods. Hopefully see you both.
Yeah,
absolutely. We were so there for the Billy Idol Journey show in Quebec in March, and then it got canceled. And it was Toto and Journey, and it got canceled. So, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Not my fault. Sorry.
I know. Bring Bryan Adams along. We'll make up for it by having some connection.
Hey, I'm going to tell you the truth. We've been trying to play with Bryan Adams for years, and it's almost like, he doesn't want anything to do with us since we don't have Steve singing. So I don't know if he's come to see us, but maybe he should. It's still, that would be like killer package. I love those guys.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Just imagine Journey, Bryan Adams, Def Leppard. That's stadiums across the world.
Well, you know what? We play stadiums with just Def Leppard. So,
Yeah.
it's definitely a stacked bill. You can pick one or the other. I think we could all do good just with a couple bands.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm all for it. Well, thanks
you,
a lot,
sir.
Neal. It was so great to meet you. We'll have to do this again.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
guys. Have a great one.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
The Mitch Lafon and Jeremy White Show.
Available wherever you stream.
Catch up on past interviews and episodes on demand now.
Subscribe so you don't miss any of it.